Many thousands of years ago, the Warhammer world was a peaceful realm, unspoiled by the spread of civilization or the clamor of war. The lands were not shaped as they are now, and the races that dwelt in them had yet to receive the gift of speech. And then from a place beyond the stars came the Old Ones. These eldritch beings arrived in the Warhammer world in silver ships that crossed the endless sea of space by means of a mystical gateway, which they set above the North Pole. Making their home in the deep tropical jungles of the western continent, the Old Ones used arcane technologies to erect fantastic cities and restructure their environment. They were as gods to the primitive races of the Warhammer world, but chose to keep themselves hidden and secretly guided the ancestors of the elves and dwarves towards a new age of enlightenment and civilization. The Old Ones wielded power beyond the wildest imaginations of their protégés, but by far their greatest achievement was the means by which they had arrived in their world. The Polar Gateway was the source of their power, harnessing forces even greater than those of nature itself. While their gateway stood, the Old Ones were the benevolent masters of every stone, flower, and creature. The world they had adopted flourished. Peace and order reigned. Tragically, the same gateway would ultimately lead to the downfall of its creators and plunge the Warhammer world into an unending chronicle of strife. All right, so welcome to the first part of what I'm hoping will be a long, ongoing series of a playthrough of Warhammer Quest. We will be reading periodically from the World of Warhammer, the official illustrated guide to the fantasy world. So lots of cool background and art in this book that we will be checking out. So this is the introduction video, and I ran a little poll on the Facebook group for the Dungeon Crawl and Adventure group to see which two heroes I would be playing with. And the two that won were the Barbarian and the Witch Hunter. So in today's video, we are just going to create the characters and get things set up for the first adventure. I am just kind of going to see how long I can keep those two adventurers alive and doing well. So we'll see how long this ends up going. Who knows, we could end up dying in the very first room, which has happened many times to me before. So we're going to be playing with just kind of the base game at first, and we will introduce more advanced rules and more DIY stuff as the game goes. Once again, there will probably be many mistakes in this playthrough, so do not use this as a how-to play guide. This is just me playing casually for fun. But really the first thing we need to do is we do need to create our characters. And so we have the Barbarian here, his character sheet. So he starts with 1d6 plus 9 wounds. So we're gonna create him here, warrior type. He's a barbarian. And he is human. And he's going to start at level 1. And he starts with 1d6 plus 9. And you can always re-roll ones one time. So let's see. He is going to start with 12 wounds. And then he also starts with a lantern, a sword that causes 1d6 plus 4 wounds damage. He has thick furs for armor, giving him a +1 toughness, so his toughness is 4. He breaks from being pinned, so he breaks from being, trapped by adjacent enemies on a 6+. And then there is his weapon skill and to hit his foes that he needs. You can pause the video if you want to read his backstory. I'll read the first paragraph. The land of Norska lies to the north of the Empire, across the Sea of Claws. It is a bleak realm of frozen fjords and towering snow-capped mountains, scoured by blizzards and freezing winds. The inhospitable expanse of rock and ice is inhabited by the Norse, some of the hardiest and most fearsome men in the known world. So he will start with his lantern, and then whenever I play two characters, I always have them also start off with a rope and a healing potion. Because if you don't start off with a rope, you could easily die on the first turn. And when you're not playing with a group that has healing, it's nice to have at least one healing potion. So I'm going to give the Barbarian the rope, and then I'll give the Witch Hunter the healing potion. So we do need a name for the Barbarian, and a name that I often use in my games is Harlan Peters. So he's going to be Harlan Peters. Harlan Peters, battle level 1, Barbarian, human. We will fill in the rest of his sheet as the time comes. And now on to the Witch Hunter. The cult of the Witch Hunter is steeped in secrecy, and the inhabitants of the Empire villages rightly fear these agents of holy righteousness. Some fake or false witch hunters do little to add to the reputation, causing blind fear and prejudice amongst the populace. Many are the innocents burned as witches, or worse, on the say of a false witch hunter, and many are the innocents slaughtered as witches at the mere rumor of a witch hunter's approach. So witch hunters are they're zealous. They are righteous warriors who are often incredibly disliked. They are not pleasant people to to be around. The Witch Hunter starts with 2d6 wounds, and he can re-roll 1s and 2s. So let's see how many wounds the Witch Hunter is going to be starting with. All right, so 9. Not bad. Battle level 1. Witch Hunter. Okay, now his name, what should his name be? I think his name will be Saul. Saul Matheson. All right, and he is a human witch hunter. Now the witch hunter starts with a certain number of magical amulets. The witch hunter begins the game with 1d6 magical amulets. Roll a dice to see how many you get. If you roll a 1, you may re-roll the dice, but must accept the second result. Then roll again to determine what sort of amulet it is, and make a note of them on your record sheet. Re-roll if you get duplicate amulets. Now this says that each amulet may be used once per adventure, but in the advanced rules, which we're going to be using because we are going to be keeping our characters from game to game, you actually get a number of charges for each amulet. You roll a d6, and that's how many times they can be used. So let's see how many amulets I will start off with. Okay, 3. That's not a bad number. We will keep those up here. So we'll have, let's see, 1, 2, and 3 amulets. Now let's see which amulets I get. The first one is going to be 5. All right, the Amulet of Fury. This amulet gives the Witch Hunter 1 extra attack in the turn it is used. Okay, Amulet of Fury. Plus 1 attack. And let's see how many starting charges this amulet has. Can reroll 1s, 3. Okay. So we will put that down here. So that can be used 3 times. And then in between adventures, you have to go to the guild and you have to try to recharge your amulets to see if you're able to do so or not. All right, so the second amulet is going to be 1. The Amulet of Purity. When this amulet is used, roll a dice for all adjacent monsters. On a score of 4, 5, or 6, the monster suffers that many wounds with no deductions at all. Ooh, that's really nice. All right, so we're just going to write Purity here for the Amulet of Purity. And let's see how many charges this has. 3, okay. I am sensing a pattern here, a pattern of 3s. All right, so let's see what the final amulet is. And that was Fury, so we have to re-roll. 3. Okay. The Amulet of Holy Fire. The Amulet of Holy Fire shoots a bolt of magical energy towards the Witch Hunter's foe. The attack has a range of 8 and hits automatically. This is a strength of 5 attack with normal deductions. All right, so we're just going to write Holy Fire here. And let's see how many charges that has. 5. Oh, nice. Okay. I have a feeling that my Witch Hunter is going to be my MVP here. I do also want to think of a reason why the Witch Hunter and the Barbarian are traveling together. I need to come up with some kind of, just a short little backstory for them. The final thing I need to do for my Witch Hunter is figure out his starting faith value. 5. All right, so these are kind of like luck tokens, these faith tokens. The Witch Hunter can use these to spend to add a +1 to any roll that he makes, and you can use them all on one, or you can divvy them out. So his starting faith, and I'm going to use this starting power square here, is going to be 5, and that's going to be faith. All right. So that's really the basics for character creation. The Witch Hunter also, he will start with his magical amulets. He has a hefty saber and a trusted pistol. He wears a metal gorget around his neck, which gives him a +1 toughness. He escapes pinning on a 5+. And so his saber causes 1d6 +3 wounds, because that's his strength is 3. You always add the strength of the warrior to do wounds for a melee attack, or you add the strength of the weapon for a ranged attack. If he rolls a 6, he causes an extra wound. And then his pistol can be used once, and then it has to be reloaded, and you have to spend a whole turn to reload it. But I have a feeling he'll be relying more on his Holy Fire. So that is the character creation. Now we need to figure out which adventure we're going to be going on. So for this particular, for the first few, I'm just going to use adventures from the base game. And I'm not going to use any of the special quest rooms for a while, so the Flames of Kozla will be left out, Into the Dark, the jail. So these things and the objective rooms from some of the expansions, we're going to leave those out for the time being. Hopefully the time being enjoys those. And then we will take our 5 objective cards here. The Fighting Pit, the Idle Chamber, the Tomb Chamber, the Fire Chasm, and the Fountain of Light. Give those a quick shuffle. Choose one. And we are going to be adventuring towards the Fire Chasm. A deep red light seeps out from this room, suffusing the area with a burning glow. The air is almost too hot to breathe, and the walls are warm to the touch. All right, so we now need to roll a d6 to determine which adventure we're going to be going on. And that is a 5, so we need to find the Fire Chasm 5 here. Let's see here, Fighting Pit, Fire Chasm. So the Fire Chasm does have some special rules for when you're crossing the chasm. And we're going to look at number 5 to see what our adventure is. Return the Dragon's Eye. Centuries ago, the great dwarf hold of Karak Osgal fell to a rampaging orc hordes. In the last days before the city fell, the dwarf smiths and forge masters of the realm gathered together under the Lord's directions. Their aim was to bind a dragon to the city to smite down its foes, and thus they built a great statue in a cavern far underground to act as a magical focus. The dwarves put a great deal of their power into their labors, and the majority of it went into the 2 great gems that serve as the dragon's eyes. A great dispute raged for years to decide who owned these precious gems, as 2 rival dwarf lords each claimed to be the rightful owner. The grudge went back and forth for many years, and so did the gems as they were wrested from one clan to the other. Placing them in the position of honor in the statue was seen as one way of settling the dispute forever. It was not to be, however, as one of the embittered dwarves crept into the chamber before the ceremony and stole one of the eyes. Shortly after, Karak Osgal fell to the orcs, and the unbound dragon arrived. The dwarves made good their escape, leaving the once glorious city to the dark, brooding presence of the great beast and the orc intruders. The dragon had since been slain by a great dwarf hero, but the city itself has never been clear of the orcs and goblins who now rule its gloomy caverns. The dwarfs blame the misfortune on the theft of the gem, and the legend tells that Karak Osgal is cursed unless the gem is replaced. Now the gem has been found, and the guardian and self-appointed ruler in exile of the city has given the warriors permission to try to return the stone, as long as they agree to give him half of whatever treasure they find on the way. That does not sound like a good deal. I don't think... Reluctantly, we agreed to that. Very reluctantly. The dwarf... Okay, so the dwarf doesn't have... We're not playing with the dwarf, so we will have the barbarian carry the gem. And put it back into the dragon's eye socket. To put the gem back, he has to stand in a square adjacent to the dragon's head. If the dwarf was killed, the warriors fail by default. Okay, so if the barbarian dies, we completely fail. When the warriors enter the fire chasm, roll on the objective room monster table to determine what is in the room. These monsters must be killed before the gem can be placed back in the eye socket. If the gem is successfully replaced, a trapdoor opens in the plinth and the statue sits on. Inside are the remains of the dragon's hoard. 3d6 times 100 gold for each warrior, of which half must be given as agreed. All right, so that is going to be our adventure. We need to place these one of the gems back into the eye in the dragon statue. So the next thing we do is we want to set up our dungeon, and the rules to do that are on page 12 of the rule book. So we have our dungeon card. Now I have a list here of the way that I set up, just to make sure that we get the right number of. So we're going to take 6 dungeon rooms. So here we have all the different dungeon rooms that I have. Some of these are from expansions and homemade stuff. So we're going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we're going to take 12 corridors. Again, I have some special corridors in here, like some dangerous bridges and that kind of thing. Uh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, we'll shuffle these up. All right, so we're going to shuffle the dungeon cards. We're going to deal out 6 face down. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, and now we take our objective room and we shuffle that within the 6 cards. So we know that our objective room is somewhere in the final 6 cards. Now we deal a further 6 dungeon cards on top of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then that is going to be our dungeon for this adventure. Now I went ahead and I pulled out some events. So what I did is I took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 random non-combat encounters. I don't know what these are. From a large stack of official and unofficial event cards. And then I took 12 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 level 1 monsters to be fighting. And I kind of went through them and I chose ones so I can pull those out of my collection of minis and have them ready to go. So we'll be facing minotaurs, snotlings, orcs, goblins, skeletons, more goblins, goblin archers, more orcs, more skeletons, spearmen, and giant spiders. So we will give those a shuffle. Nope, then we have to shuffle those in with our non-combat encounters. So these will be the cards that we draw when we enter in a dungeon room or when we roll a 1 on the power phase. All right, so there is our stack of event cards. And then we also have in here, we have all of our treasure. We have our regular treasure cards, we have our dungeon room treasure deck, and we have our objective room. So these are all of the official treasure cards released for Warhammer Quest with the expansions, some of the expansion stuff, and also some DIY stuff. As the game progresses, we will probably start using charts that I've downloaded to roll for treasure. And we'll also probably do the same for events and monsters at some point. But yeah, so that's it. We are all set up and we are ready to play. Now I'm hoping to do a couple videos on this a week, I hope. So we will see when the first part of our adventure comes with Harlan Peters and Saul Matheson, the Witch Hunter and the Barbarian. Why are these guys together? I wonder what they're searching for. What brought these two very different hero warriors together to strike out on their own? If you guys have any cool ideas, let me know, because I'm kind of having a hard time coming up with a cool way to have these guys be together. Maybe they are long lost brothers or half brothers or something, searching for some kind of family relic that will lift a curse or something like that. I'm not sure. If I can come up with something cool, I will. If not, I'll leave it up to you guys. So all right, well, hope you enjoyed the video, the little setup, and we will dive into this dungeon on the next episode. Have a good one. Bye bye.